This morning, I am pleased to introduce to you Reverend EARL IKEDA Shaku Shoshin, who is zooming in live from New York thanks to the wonders of modern-day technology. Reverend IKEDA was born in Hilo to parents Shiro and Fujiko IKEDA. He is the youngest of 8 siblings. Upon graduation from Hilo High School in 1966, yay, a fellow Viking, okay, he attended the University of Hawaii at Manoa, where he obtained a BA in Japanese. He later attended Ryukoku University and the Kai Kyoshi Kenshu Sho Study Center for Overseas Ministry in Kyoto, Japan. Reverend IKEDA received his Tokudo ordination in 1973 and Kyoshi certification in 2000. Upon becoming a Kai Kyoshi minister of Honpa Hongwanji Mission of Hawaii, he first served at West Kauai Hongwanji Mission for 3 years. Then he was assigned to Puna Hongwanji for 8 years, while also overseeing Pahala and Naalehu Hongwanjis. During that time, he was a familiar face at Big Island Temple events, served as our guest speaker many times, and was well known for his baking skills. He then transferred to Mo'ili'ili Hongwanji for 3 years. In 2014, he retired from Hawaii Kyodan and then joined the Buddhist Churches of America to accept a resident minister position at the New York Buddhist Church. In 2021, he retired from BCA and now makes his home in the Big Apple. Please show your hands in applause and give Reverend EARL IKEDA a big welcoming aloha.
Good morning, everybody in Hawaii. It's really a pleasure to be able to address you and to express my thoughts about what Obon is about. First of all, my heartfelt aloha and thanks to Reverend Blaine, because he served at Mo'ili'ili Hongwanji not only as the president, but he also was studying to become a Tokudo minister. And we did a lot of things together. And I felt very, very privileged to be working with him. And of course, all of you, as was mentioned earlier, there was a time that I visited Kona quite often. That was when you didn't have a minister, and all the ministers on the Big Island came together to say, let's help Kona as much as we can. At that time, Mary Katayama was very influential. She helped me to get to Kona quite often, and I did many memorial services there and got to know many of you. Of course, many years have already passed, and some of the old timers are no longer there. They've gone on to the Pure Land. But still yet, as I think about all of these things that happen in my life, I feel very, very privileged to be able to have shared or have them share their life with me. The trip to New York was indeed a great challenge for me, a local boy living in Hilo, Hawaii, born and raised in Hawaii, going to the Big Apple almost halfway around the world was like going to an entirely different country. And I remember when I first got here, I liked to walk around the neighborhood. And so one day as I was walking near the temple, there was a coffee shop. I sat down and the only seat available was facing the main road, which is Broadway. As I was sitting there, I looked out in the window and I saw people and I said, you know, there's something different about this place. They dressed differently and everything else just looked the same. They didn't hit on me that I was not in Hawaii anymore. I was somewhere else. And so it began that my eyes and my journey began with trying to understand not only what life is about somewhere else, but also my own life as well. Today we're observing Obon. And although we use the word Obon, the original term is Ulambana. And the word Ulambana comes from the Ulambana Sutra, where the student of Shakyamuni, Mogayana, is talking to Shakyamuni and saying he's concerned that his mother, who loved him and was very devout, always caring about him, upon his ability to find his mother after she passed away, realized that she wasn't in the Pure Land, that she had gone to the depths of hell in a place called Gakido, or the hell of the hungry ghosts. People who are born in the realm of the hungry ghosts are symbolized with having pot bellies and long thin necks. And as he visualized his mother, because he had a special ability, he could see her scrounging for food. And whenever she found something and was ready to either drink, partake, to eat or to drink, As she brought it to her lips, it burst into flames, so she was always hungry. And so after consulting with Shakyamuni as to what he can do for his mother, Shakyamuni had told him that it's a very difficult task to be able to free his mother, whom he loved very much, from the depths of Gakido. And so he said, the reason why she's there is because she was thinking about you only. She forgot everything else in the world, and everything was just centered on him. So in this course of, thinking about him, of course, there was things like discrimination, hatred, anger, all the different things that we should not and hopefully encounter in our lives, but try to put them aside. And as the story goes, Mogayana was able to do something to help his fellow brothers in the Dharma. And upon presenting them with robes and clothing, out of gratitude for his selflessness, they started to chant the words of Shakyamuni. And in the incense, in the smoke of the incense, he could see his mother slowly by slowly being rising to, I guess, to the Pure Land and being freed from the depths of Gakido. It is said that Mogayana was so happy that he picked up a tray and started to dance and relate his joy. And therefore, today in the Japanese culture, we refer to Ulambana as Obon. Historically, the word Ulambana has changed. At one time, it was as he was moving from India to Japan, Urabong, and later on, for whatever reason, turned to Obon. And as you know, the symbol for Obon is not only the choching or the lantern that we hang, which represents the light of the Buddha, wisdom and compassion, but also the Obon. If you look at the Chinese character for Obon, it is written as a tray. However, in the Jodo Shinchu tradition, we use an entirely different word to reflect upon Obon. We call it Kangi-e. Kangi-e are two Chinese characters, each one meaning joy. So it's a repetition of joy and joy. One is a physical joy, one is a spiritual joy. So the message behind Kangi-e, a gathering of joy, is that everything is complete and we can understand and we can feel some sense of great joy, being free from all the attachments we have when we reflect upon the vow of the Buddha, which was made to embrace each and every one of us unconditionally. As I reflect upon these words, I'd like to share my personal experiences with Obon. I think quite often when we think about Obon, we talk about someone who passed away, a funeral, a passing. And my first experience with someone passing away when I was 10 years old, when my aunt passed away, my father's youngest sister. And it was the first time at that very young age I'd ever experienced such a thing. And so it brought on many questions as to what is the meaning of life. And for many years, I contemplated. And about 2 years later, then my grandmother passed away. And I began to wonder, what is life about? Just to be born and one day to die? In the course of my growing up, I guess, I was always attending church, going to Buddhist temples. And I remember when I attended Japanese school, there was a teacher that helped me to understand something about the meaning of life. In Hilo at that time, there was one of the first female ministers. Her name was Tagami. Some of you may remember her. Tagami Sensei was my Japanese language teacher, as well as she helped me to understand different things. On one occasion, I was very sad, and I said to her, Tagami Sensei, is it true that one day we'll all die? She said, yes, we'll all die. But why do we have to die? And she couldn't really explain to me, but she said, Earl, you're too young to think about dying. Why don't you think about living? And I had to think about it a lot, although I was too young. And of course, when you're young, you're not worried about any kind of illnesses or whatever. You're basically still relatively free, I guess, at the age of 16, that I began to put it aside. But this question was always in the back of my mind. What happens when we pass away? And as I think about these things, and I think, as was mentioned, in the year 1971, I had the opportunity to go to Japan. And there I lived with the ministers that were coming to America, Hawaii, BCA, Canada, South America, at a place called Kaikyoshi Kenshusho. It was like the overseas school or department for ministers going abroad. Living there, I was able to meet not only some of the ministers that came to Hawaii, but was able to have, right as a resource, all these great minds that could help me understand something about Buddha Dharma. And it was then that I began to wonder, what is the meaning of life? It was then I came across the concept of Shinran Shonin. And for me, Shinran Shonin has always been a very, very important figure. He's like a hero to me because he, I think, didn't want to be necessarily known as a great teacher. He just wanted to share his thoughts with each and every one of us to understand or give us some essence of this is what my existence is about. What I like to believe and what I've become to understand, that each and every one of us is special. Each and every one of us has something to share. But then in the Buddhist terminology, or in the course of Jodo Shinshu, we use the terminology Ondobo Ondogyo, fellow travelers on the same path. That each and every person that we meet is not necessarily by chance, but it was meant to be. From each and every experience, each and every person that we meet, we learn something. And although we're looking always outwards, it's important to know that through their eyes, we're able to understand about ourselves and who and what we are. I think today, as we read the Amida Kyo, it brought back many memories as to why the benefits of understanding Amida's vow, what the Pure Land is like, and why we just so-called why we should want to be born there. And it says, as he's saying to Shariputra, the easiest way to be born there is simply to call the Buddha's name. As growing up in Hawaii, and because I have ability to read a little Japanese, we would go every year to Obon to pay homage to our ancestors, to kind of reconnect with them. But I noticed that, and even in Kona, that on the tombstones, there are Chinese characters that are written. Quite often you see the words Namo Amida Butsu, which is calling the Buddha's name, or realizing the Buddha is embracing us always. But on our family tomb, we have Kue Issho. Kue Issho comes from the Amida Kyo. It means we'll all be together again in the same place, in the realm of the Buddha. It took me a long time to try and understand this concept, and I cannot honestly say I truly understand what it means. But sometimes when I'm able to open my heart and mind to look other than just my own thoughts, I can sense my father, my mother, my grandmother, and all those who've gone before me, talking to me and trying to help me in some way. Recently, the most influential sutra that I read is Ju Seige. Ju Seige comes from the Buddha of the sutra on the Buddha of immeasurable life, the Daimuryo Jukyo. And Ju Seige means literally we are affirming the vows. As some of you may know from the story of Hozo Bosatsu and Amida Buddha, Hozo Bosatsu was the Bosatsu or the Bodhisattva who, looking deep within himself, wanted to help all beings unconditionally, which is, of course, the practice of the 6 paramitas, which is also the great practice for all bodhisattvas to become Buddhas, to look deep within and find unconditional means by which all beings can be embraced. And so it is, after countless numbers of eons of contemplation, the Bodhisattva Dhammakara opened his eyes. And before his own teacher, Lokesvara Raja, and other Buddhas as witnesses, recited 48 great vows. I will not become a Buddha unless 48 great times. Say Fujo Shogak. And in there, after saying these 48 vows, then it is said that he recited a poem. And so Jusege, reaffirming the vows, is a poem that reflects upon Bodhisattva's Dhammakara's intent, true intent, to liberate all beings from suffering. The first three verses are the most important. And as I'm looking at this translation here, the first verse says, I, Bodhisattva Dhammakara, have established the vows unexcelled. There is nothing greater than the vows I make now. And upon fulfilling and attaining Buddhahood, great Buddhi, I will not only bring all to the highest level of existence, enlightenment, but I will fulfill each one so all beings can be liberated unconditionally. Secondly, I will be the great provider. I realize that there is always something called suffering. There's also something called negativity. But I want all beings to know that I'll always be there for you. I will always be with you. And thirdly, upon attaining enlightenment, upon fulfilling all 48 great vows, I will receive a name that is recognized by all other Buddhas as being true and real. And my name will be heard everywhere. If it is not heard even in one place, I will not become a Buddha. All vows were fulfilled. And therefore, Bodhisattva Dhammakara was given the name of Namo Amida Butsu, or the Buddha of immeasurable life and wondrous light. In this particular chant, there is one particular passage that truly has touched my heart and helped me to contemplate and understand something about my own existence, not only with myself, but with all beings as well. And it is written here in the Sino-Japanese. Ishu kai hozo kose kudokuho, jo o daishu chu seppo shishi ku. And loosely translated, it reads, upon attaining Buddhahood, I, Bodhisattva Dhammakara, would open the Dharma house storehouse, the Dharma storehouse, and all of its virtues will be bestowed upon all beings unconditionally. I will constantly be always among you and will preach the Dharma with the strength or the roar of a lion. So what it means basically is that I'm always with you. But how, it's great as a story to think about Bodhisattva Dhammakara and Amida Buddha, but how does it affect you and me and those that be honored today? In Buddhism, we do not practice any kind of discrimination. The name Buddha refers to boundless wisdom and compassion. And as Amida Buddha, it means two things. Number one, that which allows me to exist, that which gives me the energy to go on one life after another, continuously on, until when I'm able to hear and encounter Namo Amida Butsu, attain or hear the words of the Buddha of immeasurable life and wondrous light. In this case here, Namo Amida Butsu or Amida Buddha. As I mentioned, in Buddhism, we do not discriminate. Buddhas are, an energy that represents wisdom and compassion, boundless wisdom and compassion. And because we do not discriminate, what it means is that all those who've gone before us to the Pure Land, in my interpretation, have now become one with the Buddha. And I think this is a uniqueness of Buddhism, that we do not separate between the Buddha and our ancestors and everybody else. They've all become one. And I think as when I served Molila Honganji, on the wall, there was a picture, and it was like a puzzle that says we're all an important part of the puzzle. There is no one in this world, in this universe, that does not have an important part to play in what is known as life itself. We all are part of this, not only puzzle, a picture, but without each and every one of us, it would not become complete. So I like to think that when we refer to Amida Buddha, when we refer to Amida or Namo Amida Butsu, it is those who've gone before us in the form of boundless wisdom and compassion and energy that reaches out to each and every one of us to say, it's okay to be who you are. It's okay Don't be other than your true self. And so when I think about Obon, although we think about those who've gone before us, it is an opportunity, in my eyes, for us to refresh upon the idea of learning how to live the best that we can, being who and what we are, not something else. Because the Buddha accepts us just as we are. And so just as mother and father loved us unconditionally, so does everything else. However, it is just our foolish mind that segregates, that discriminates and says, it has to be this, has to be that. No, 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 no. As human beings, we cannot even control ourselves. How can we even save ourselves? And so the idea behind Namo Amida Butsu, or the Buddha of inconceivable light, means there is something out there that loves each and every one of us just as we are. There is something out there that we cannot describe that embraces us unconditionally and says, come, come, just as we are. Many years ago, or several years ago, Dr. Muneto Sensei, I think some of you recognize this book. It's called Dharma Treasures. It's a translation of poems that were taken by or made by pioneers of the Kono Honganji in the past. And there are several that were very outstanding. Today, I'd like to read a poem from Chiyono Sasaki. And I understand that Chiyono Sasaki has a daughter that is a member. I think she's still there, who's a member of Kono Honganji. But in this particular set of poems, there is one that catches my eye. It's called Settle Mind, or in Japanese, Anji. And it reads, how shameful for not knowing Amida's true compassion. Looking at myself only, I worried and calculated about this understanding and that understanding. I listened, believed, and calculated with my self-powered mind, not realizing that it was the self-powered mind that pushed true compassion away from myself. When I listened relying on myself. When I knew, I credited myself for knowing. I was satisfied with myself. Without realizing hell waiting for me, I appeared to be happy and contented without thinking about hell seriously. I did not see myself as going to hell. In spite of false views, laziness, and selfishness, I was proud of myself as a person who practiced selfless giving. With the understanding which I concocted, no way can I go to Pure Land. So what Chiyono Sasaki is basically saying is that when she was able to give up herself and she began to realize that it was herself that was keeping her away from the Buddha. It was herself that did not allow herself to truly be the person that she was. When she was able to understand this and the great benevolence of the Buddha, the great wisdom, the great compassion, the great love of Amida Buddha, she was able to be the person that she should be and lived thereafter. So as we think about Obon at this time, again, think of it as the opportunity that we have this chance called life to make a difference. And so we need to ask ourselves, what am I doing to contribute to the dynamics of life? Here the Buddha accepts me. Here my ancestors accept me. All those who've gone before us, who live in the realm of Namo Amida Butsu, accept me for who and what I am. What am I doing? So we have this opportunity to be who and what we are. We have this opportunity to be and try our best for the benefit of all being. Obon, again, is a very special time. Yes, we do think about those who've gone before us. Yes, like many, for myself, I can honestly say, I think about my mortality. How many more years do I have? But as I learned from my former teacher, Reverend K. Tagami, that unfortunately, all of us one day will have to leave this world. But what's important is that the moment we are born until the time we take our last breath, what do we do in between? That's the picture. That's the picture. And whatever we do, yes, there will be consequences. However, What's more important is to be the persons that we are, the true persons that we are, each and every one of us. As described in Amida Kyo, each and every one of us is like a particular special lotus blossom that is its own, has its own color, has its own fragrance, everything else too. But together when they make a beautiful scene, together, they bring everything together, they come together in a way that is, again, referred to as boundless wisdom and compassion. Let us use Obon as the means by which we can learn to not only accept ourselves, but through our acceptance of who and what we are, be able to walk the path, to be able to contribute to the dynamics of life, being the best we can ever be. I'd like to thank all of you for allowing me to exchange my ideas, share my ideas. It's not enough to really express a lot of things I'd like to say, but I really would like to thank you for this opportunity to be able to share this time with each and every one of you. I think of Hawaii a lot. As they say, you can take the boy out of Hawaii, but you can't take the heart and mind from it. Yes, in my own way, I hope that by being just myself, I was able to bring a part of aloha here to the Big Apple. And when people often, when I went back after the first 5 years first several years living in New York, my friends asked me, why do you want to live in hell when you can live in paradise? And I can honestly say to each and every one of them that living in hell helped me to understand that there is a Pure Land even in hell. Amida Buddha is everywhere, anywhere. But most importantly, Amida Buddha resides within me, just as Amida Buddha resides within each and every one of us. And all of the people have gone before us, our ancestors, our friends, all called to us with Namo Amida Butsu to let us know they were never, ever alone. They're always with us, holding our hands to say, come, come, let us walk the path. Let us be the best we can ever be. Namandabutsu, namandabutsu, namandabutsu. Ishu kai hozo kosei kudoko, jo daishu chu seppo shishiku. When I, Bodhisattva, become a Dharma, become a Buddha, I will open up the storehouse and let its virtues, let its treasures be shared with all beings. I will always be among you to share the Dharma, to spread the Dharma with the lion's roar. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to share my thoughts with you. Namo Amida Butsu.